Hi, Sarah. Hi, Peter. Hi, Gabriel.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm well.
Good, thank you.
Hi to you, Paul.
Hi, Gabriel.
I'm good.
I'm also good. I'm happy this time round we are on time.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you will
I
signal me when you want us to start.
hope everything is set.
Yes, everything is okay on my side.
Good.
Probably I can try to share my screen.
Yeah, you can take
Uh,
this time to test the system.
yes, yes. So I need to be allowed. Sharing is not turned on.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
you are
Peter. Good.
sorted.
Tuko sawa sasa. We are okay. We are good.
Hapo sawa Peter, thank you.
Is it moving on your
Gabriel.
end?
Yes, you can see it moving. You're on slide 2.
Okay, good.
Am I loud and clear from your side?
Yes, I can hear you so well.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll begin. We'll alert you once we are ready. So let's give people
Okay.
time. We'll begin at
All
8.
right. Sawa.
Good evening, members. Welcome to today's webinar. So let's give members time. We'll give them 3 minutes to join. But in the meantime, I can make some announcements. So ensure that you've registered using your correct details to allow us upload your CPD to KMLTTB without any issues. So maybe just to clarify, indicate your name correctly, your email, your ID number, and your KMLTTB registration number. So then the letter or the number after the A or B is a number, is not an alphabetic number, is a zero. So when you are indicating or signing up, confirm that you documented a number, not a letter zero, letter O, but number zero. So the other thing we'll be doing, I know we've been announcing this, you will not be doing self-reporting going forward, but we will be able to upload your CPD so long as you meet the requirements. The requirements are that you attend 60% of this webinar, which is probably 45 minutes minimum. You also need to have ensured that you've renewed your license and signed up for the KMLTB portal. Some of us confuse registering for the webinar and signing up on KMLTB portal. I think there are some reminders on our WhatsApp groups. If you have a challenge, you can reach out to one of us for guidance. Also, the other thing we want to do or announce is that if you have a question during this webinar, kindly utilize the Q&A section, because I know the chat box at some point will be disabled to allow us learn. So post your questions on Q&A session. After the presenter will be done, we'll give him some time to respond to our concerns. So at this point, allow me to also invite those who are joining us. Welcome to today's webinar. So as highlighted on our screen, we'll be taken through safeguarding impartiality, strategies for clinical labs. So as we give the participants 1 more minute, I will be able to introduce the facilitator. But for the group norms, kindly post your questions on Q&A section. Do not post them on the chat box because we won't be able to read them there. Otherwise, welcome. So I think the 1 minute is over to have allowed the members to join in. So allow me introduce our speaker today. I know he's not a new speaker or a new member of this webinar for those of us who've been here. Paul Kahara is a quality assurance specialist. So Paul Kahara is a distinguished healthcare quality specialist with over 10 years of experience in quality management system for medical laboratories. He has a bachelor's degree in medical lab science from Technical University of Kenya, duly registered and licensed by KMLTTB. He is currently pursuing a master's degree in health system management at Kenya Methodist University. He is the lead consultant of Rankwal Consultancy Group, where he oversees training and consultancy in quality management system and occupational safety and health. In addition to this full-time role, Paul serves as a technical assessor with Kenya Accreditation Service, that is KENAS, contracted on need basis for the ISO 15189 version 2022 and ISO 17043 version 2023 assessment. Previously, Paul served as the quality and technical manager at Human Quality Assessment Services, that is UCAS, where he successfully led multiple ISO 17043 re-accreditation and surveillance assessment, while also supporting laboratories pursuing ISO 15189 accreditation. Earlier in his career, he worked at Akagan, Kisumu, as a medical lab quality officer, and played a vital role in sustaining the ISO 15189 accreditation that was done by SANA, that is the South African Accreditation National Service. Currently leading operations at Rankwal Consultancy Group, Paul has made a notable stride in capacity building. In the past year alone, he has trained over 450 healthcare professionals across 17 African countries, 2 South American countries, 3 Middle East countries, and 2 Asian countries, majority being medical lab professionals. He has extensive knowledge and practical expertise as a trainer, implementer, and assessor in ISO 15189, ISO 17043, ISO 901, Kenya Quality Model of Health, that is KQMH, and self-care standards. Sorry for that. With a deep passion of healthcare quality, Paul is committed to strengthening health system, empowering professionals, and driving sustainable quality improvement around the world. Help me welcome Paul. Paul, welcome. We are here to listen and learn from you, from us together. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, for that elaborate introduction, and good evening all. I'm happy to join you in this webinar. This is my second time here facilitating, and it's an honor that you found me worthy to come back again and share what I know about medical laboratory practice. So kindly, Sarah, confirm that you can see my screen and that it's moving.
Yes, confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So for the past few weeks, I have seen you guys engage in very, very technical concepts of medical laboratory. But allow me this evening to engage you in a rather easy topic, talking about impartiality in medical laboratories. You are all aware that is a quite emphasized requirement now in the current version of the standard. And so we'll be talking about some of the strategies that clinical laboratories can make use of to make sure that you're able to uphold impartiality across our medical laboratory profession. Now, for the next probably 20 minutes or so, allow me to engage you briefly on an introduction on what is impartiality generally for clinical laboratories. What are some of the requirements of 15189, particularly clause 4.1 on impartiality? And then we'll go ahead and outline some of the common threats that we are having right now in different laboratories concerning impartiality. And then finally talk about some few strategies on how to curb and manage impartiality threats. And once that is done, we'll be able to get to your questions and see how far we can go in terms of answering them. Otherwise, as we proceed with the session, please take your time, write any question that you have as we proceed, so that once we get to the end, it will just be a matter of going through what you have indicated, and we'll be very happy to answer them. Now, I want to start in a very a casual way, because impartiality is not hard science. It is as an easy concept that is used not just in medical laboratories, but across different professions. Now, for someone who is pursuing a case in a court of law, and they get a moment, to approach the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the High Court, the Magistrate Court, they are there waiting and very hoping that the judges are going to be impartial, They are going to handle their cases in a manner that there's not going to be any bias, and that they are going to finally get justice from that court of law. Same thing in journalism, that as we are, listening to these guys reporting to us the happenings of the day, what is happening in different parts of the world, we hope that the stories they are telling us are impartial. They have not taken any side. We are hoping that for one reason or another, they have taken their time, to interrogate both sides of the story, and what they are reporting to us is a central view of the journalism that they are doing. Now, similarly, in medical laboratory profession, we also expected to demonstrate impartiality. When our patients are waiting, at that patient waiting area, they are hoping that the way we are going to call out their names, for phlebotomy exercise, we are going to uphold the basic principle of impartiality, that they are going to enter that phlebotomy room in the way they came to the hospital. And later on, once the sample is collected and they're waiting for the results, they're also hoping that the results they are going to get are the true results, objective and not subjective. They are going to get results that are not biased in any way. And that is the hope of any patient who is visiting us in any hospital that we are working. Now, ISO 15189, the version of 2022, defines impartiality as the objectivity with regard to the outcome of tests in a medical laboratory. And this objectivity can also be understood as freedom from bias or freedom from conflict of interest. In other words, you can also say that this impartiality is that aspect of being independent in whatever we do as a laboratory, serving our patients without any prejudice, without any prejudgments of who our patients are, without thinking probably this patient must be having this condition, or that neutrality, fairness, open-mindedness, or even the balance that we demonstrate when we are serving our patients. Of course, all that is the opposite of favoritism, because the other way of defining, the opposite of impartiality would be favoring one patient over another, not considering when they came to the hospital, but deciding to, serve one patient before the other, or to give results of a particular patient in a manner that we have been influenced. If we happen to be influenced, in the way we carry out our testing activities, then we will not be impartial. We'll be described as a laboratory that is not impartial. It means we are partial. It means we are taking sides in the way we conduct our activities in the laboratory. Now, why is impartiality important before we get to the strategies? First of all, it ensures that we eliminate subjectivity in laboratory testing. Now, one thing you need to agree, and I know you can agree with me, is that as humans, we are so emotional. We want to do things according to our feelings, including even testing, even how we handle a particular patient. We are likely to be influenced by, our feelings about that patient, or maybe the emotions we have about the condition that this patient is going through. But this concept of impartiality helps us to remove that subjectivity from us as we carry out testing, so that we're able to give out results as they are, regardless of the condition the patient is in, regardless of the hurry that this patient is saying they have. Now, it also helps us to uphold patient rights and generally human rights, because the moment we don't show, partiality, it means that we are going to treat every patient in the same way, whether they come from a very rich background, whether they come from whatever religion, whatever it is, we will not discriminate our patients for whatever reasons, because of this fundamental principle of being impartial. It helps build trust and confidence among laboratory users and patients. And you'll agree with me that if any patient or any clinician got some perception, about a particular laboratory and what kind of results they usually release, then it means they can't trust our results. Same thing even in the court of law. If you stand before a certain judge who has a history of not being so impartial, then you'll not have any trust or confidence in whatever judgment they deliver. That happens also in medical laboratories, that once we uphold, impartiality, then you're able to build the trust and confidence among our laboratory users and patients. It helps in managing conflict of interest. Of course, we have so many conflicts because we are not entirely independent from the society that we are serving. In some way, one way or another, we are related to the people that we serve. How do we demonstrate that we are impartial? We really have to look at a few things shortly. It helps to promote continuous quality improvement. It helps to safeguard patient safety. And finally, ultimately, it's an accreditation requirement for any facility that wants to go the direction of accreditation. Then it must be able to demonstrate what they are doing about impartiality. Now, what is the requirement of ISO 15189 when it comes to impartiality? You'll notice that impartiality is highlighted in clause 4.1 as well as clause 6.2. I think 6.2, is it 6.21b? Those are the sections in the standard that impartiality is quite talked about. Now, laboratories shall be activities shall be undertaken impartially, and the laboratory shall be structured and managed to safeguard impartiality. Of course, it's a very broad requirement that requires a lot from us, to determine what we understand by impartiality and doing something about it. Now, when the standard talks about laboratory activities shall be undertaken impartially, it means that all of them, from pre-examination, examination, post-examination, and even the extra examination phases, we need to be seen like we are not taking sides, like we're independent as a laboratory. So if it is the pre-examination phase, in terms of how we manage our queues, we need to be seen like we're not taking side, we're not favoring any patient over the other. When we are doing the testing, we should not prejudge, our patients, think that because this is how they look like, then they must be having this condition. And therefore, whatever results we will give, we will be more based on what we know or what we think about this patient. In the post-examination phase, the same. Do you want to fabricate results? And also in the extra examination phases, for example, the personnel recruitment, are we influenced by other factors, to recruit a certain personnel? So the standard is calling us not to have any favoritism, and our results should be based on scientific evidence of some particular validated equipment. So that is what the standard requires of us in clause 4.1a. Now, the second part of 4.1a, which is about the laboratory shall be structured and managed to safeguard impartiality, this has to do with, the physical laboratory infrastructure. Are we structured in a manner that would, prevent a patient or any willing party to influence us, to give results in a particular way? It also refers to governance issues. Who is our manager? Are they related in any way with any of the staff? Are they also doing supply business in the same facility? Are they related to probably a more senior person in the institution in a manner that even if they demonstrated incompetence, there's nothing that we can do about them? And it also includes the personnel management as well. So the standard is calling us for all these activities, the laboratory must be structured and managed to safeguard impartiality, and we'll be looking at the strategies shortly. Part B of 4.1 is that the management must show commitment to impartiality And there are so many ways, like we are going to see shortly, that the management in Part C of the laboratory shall take responsibility of impartiality. So we will not assume that, we have employed people who are religious, who know God, who are ethical by nature. We should not assume. The laboratory should not make any assumption that the people they have employed are good people. The laboratory must assume these people are naturally subjective. They have emotions, they have connections with other parties across in the society. And so they are likely, even though they are good people, they are likely to be influenced in one way or another to release results in a particular way. 4.1D, the lab shall monitor its activities and its relationships to identify threats to impartiality. Now, besides, taking responsibility, showing they have a policy, they have assumed all that, the issues of impartiality are emerging in nature. They will keep changing from time to time. What was a threat, what was not a threat maybe 1 year ago, it is likely to be a threat today. And so the laboratory is called upon to do continuous monitoring to identify any threats to impartiality. And this shall also include relationships of personnel, because like we are saying, we are subjective, we are related, we have connections with the world. Now, one thing we need to know is that even though those relationships exist, like you see, there's a brother and a sister who work in the same organization. There is a spouse, there's a couple that is working in the same laboratory. Those relationships may happen, they may be there, but they do not always necessarily present a threat to impartiality, especially if they are declared. So if any threat is identified, the effect shall be eliminated or minimized so that the impartiality is not compromised. And the lab must be able to demonstrate how they plan to mitigate those threats. So regular sessions to identify any emerging threats is one thing that we can take advantage of, whether it is through the risk management that usually carry out in our facilities, maybe twice or thrice in a year, and continuously instituting measures to curb the threats. Those are some of the things that we need to do continuously to make sure that our threats are well handled and taken care of. The truth is, some of these threats may not be eliminated. The standard actually is talking about either eliminating or minimizing. So it means some threats may still, continue being with us, but we need to take measures to at least minimize them. Now, what are some of these common threats to impartiality? I have tried to categorize them into three, but I know my list may not be exhaustive. There could be other threats that probably I have not mentioned. Now, first category is financial threats. And when you talk about financial threats, I want us to consider three parties or four parties. That is the patients, the personnel, the suppliers, and management themselves. Those are the four groups of people I want us to consider, and some of the threats to impartiality that emanate from where they stand. Now, on patients' interests, these patients may want or may have a desire, an ethical desire of a favorable result. That is a threat that we have to keep combating all the time. You have a patient who wants to travel, maybe abroad, and they have been told they have to test negative for this particular condition. Let's say pregnancy, they have to test negative for now before they leave for that country. Or it could be they want to join or to get into the military. And in the military, you have to be physically fit. Now, there are some conditions which, if you demonstrate you have these conditions, they may not allow you to such professions. So the patient, based on their ambitions to join, a particular field or to travel to a particular country, they may really push you to give them the result they want because they really want to get to their desires. It can also be an ethical desire of timely results. We know ourselves, we are not very patient most of the times. We want to get results as soon as we arrive in the laboratory. And so these patients, because of the hurry they have to go wherever they want to go, they may have this unethical desire, to have everything done for them very fast as soon as possible, and therefore push you, by giving you some tips, some commissions to make sure that you're able to deliver their results as soon as they want them. It can also be a self-diagnosis without the due process. Maybe these patients want to carry out a particular test to, go and indulge in some fun, some pleasures. And so they want to request the test and want you to not go through the clinical team, the clinician sees this patient and they, recommend for this particular test. This patient may just want the test, just for them, and therefore they may want to push you, they may want to influence you to ignore the due process and make sure that you deliver to them whatever they want. It can also be insurance exploitation. You have heard of patients who will come purporting they are a particular person. They even come with the insurance card. They even come with, they look alike, their brothers or probably their neighbors, their friends. And once they notice that probably you have realized this is not the right the patient that should be called in, they will engage you, behind the doors, behind the curtains, behind the tents, so that at least you can allow them to be seen by an insurance card of another patient. Now, those are threats that would emanate directly from the patient. It can also be personnel interests, like what we are talking about, irregular performance of unbilled tests. Probably I'm giving it a better name, but we all know that this happens, where we do a test that is not billed in the right way. It can also be financial incentives from external parties. So you have these people who want to, encourage you because of the good work you are doing, so that you can continue giving them the results that they want, that they desire. It can also be undesired, a conflict of interest, where you find yourself, as a personnel, you also are a supplier in the same institution, or you are a personnel and there's also another activity that you're engaging in the hospital, which then requires you to, go against the set out standards to reach out to your interest. It can also be your own personnel biases, prejudices, and beliefs. And what this means is you may have your own belief, I don't like people who are transgender. I don't like people who are coming from this religion. I don't like people who are voting for this person. They are the ones who voted this person in. And so having that prejudice or that bias against people of a particular kind can also cause you to be threatened in terms of being impartial. Now, the other group is the suppliers, and this can be through unhealthy competition, where because a supplier wants their product to be sold in a particular hospital, then they want to influence, the laboratory manager, the quality assurance officer, and or even all the staff who work there, so that they can allow this equipment in, or they can allow this faulty reagent into the system, even if it is not working as required. It can also be for falsification of method verification studies. You have heard of institutions where before they accept an equipment, it has to undergo the due process of method verification. And if it is not passing the verification studies, it will be rejected at that point. Now, if the supplier wants the equipment to be acceptable, then they might force into the system by falsifying the experimental data for this method verification. That is a threat emanating from the suppliers. Of course, like I said, these threats are not exhaustive. There could be more. I'm just talking briefly about some of the common threats. Now, the other group is management, where we work. It could be the laboratory management, or it could also be the hospital management generally. And one of the threats could be the unethical desire to increase revenue from the lab. And so they push you in a corner, to release results in a particular way, so that this patient can be admitted And through the admissions, we can be able to get more funds, for the hospital. We have done a lot of investment in this facility, and therefore we have to recover our money. Now, that unethical desire to increase revenue, and there's no problem increasing revenue, by the way. The only challenge is how we do it, how the management choose to do it. There's no way they will tell you, every patient who comes with fever, they must show they have malaria, so that we can easily be able to convince the insurance to allow us admit this patient for further testing, in the ward. It can also be insurance exploitation, where one patient, their symptoms are known. They only have a wound, on their leg. But these clinicians would, through the management's, of course, interest, will tell you, any patient who comes to this facility, they must do a CBC, they must do a UECs and all those advanced tests, even when the condition of the patient is well known. It does not require all those tests. And when I say this, there's no problem the institution increasing revenue, but we need to have a more ethical way of how we improve this revenue. Sometimes you're put in a corner. I may not have all the answers of what to do when in that corner, but we'll probably try to discuss at the end of this. There's also unreasonable targets on the laboratory manager. Again, in the intention of increasing revenue, the laboratory manager is forced, you have to get 1 million within a week from this laboratory of yours. So make sure that we are able to utilize, these patients who come to this facility, let them do as much testing as possible. Now, those unreasonable targets will force the laboratory manager to go an extra mile into threatening the impartiality of the personnel who work there. It could be patients' discrimination based on financial capability. And most of these management will say, we are having so many bad debts, and therefore we cannot admit a patient who has not demonstrated their capability to do payment. And therefore the patient is kept waiting until they bring all their relatives, until they do a WhatsApp harambe, so that they have money to be admitted into the hospital. And this often leads to negligence. Now, that is a threat to impartiality. This discrimination based on financial capability is actually a threat to impartiality. It can also be role conflicts, where probably you are the laboratory manager, you are the procurement manager, and you are the quality assurance officer at the same time. Now, that will definitely compromise your decision making. For most of us who have been in these systems for some time, you know that most of the times the quality assurance officer and the laboratory manager, they may not always speak the same language, because the laboratory manager is looking at how much can we get out of the resources we have in the lab. How can we minimize the expenses in this facility? But the quality assurance officer is looking at how best can we provide quality services to our clients. And that may conflict with what the laboratory manager is looking forward to. Both of them are doing a very good job. One of them is controlling and managing resources. The other one is ensuring quality. Now, those things in most times don't go together. Now, if you happen to be the quality officer and the laboratory manager, then you will have a lot of conflict in your own role, that in a way that you're not able to perform to the expectations of our clients. Now, the other category of threats is personnel relationship threats. And this is what I talked about. Personnel who are related to each other in terms of maybe they are friends, they're just very good friends, they are classmates, they used to be classmates in school, in college, or probably they are related by blood. It is a spouse working together with the other spouse. It is a brother working with a sister. It is a father, especially in the government. It's a father working with a son, maybe in two different locations, but in the same institution. Now, what will happen is that we are going to encounter or to experience possibility of nepotism during recruitment. That is a threat to impartiality, because on one side you want to follow the due process, of let us advertise the position, let us know, let us do shortlisting, let us do the interview and all that. But because of these personnel relationships, you are unable to follow the due process, and so you are threatened to go through the nepotism way, and that is a serious threat to impartiality. Now, the other bit is favoritism during competency assessment and performance appraisal. Now, assuming you've already joined into the organization, and for one reason or another, because you stay most of the time you stay in that institution, you might end up getting married to one of your colleagues. Now, it will be so difficult for the senior one, maybe the husband is the laboratory manager, and the wife is one of the technologists there. It is very difficult for you to do competency assessment in such a case, because what will you say about your wife? That they're not competent, that they're not performing well with their roles. So you are seriously conflicted when you end in those personnel relationships. Favoritism during roles assignments and also during the organization of the duty rota. So you want to favor your spouse, you want to favor your younger brother, you don't want them to do night shifts because they are your younger brother. It can also be unfair prioritization of patients to the phlebotomy. Now, if one of the patients who is coming to the facility is one of your relatives, then you are likely to favor them or to move them to skip the queue on their behalf so that they are able to be attended to as quickly as possible. And it can also be unfair handling of patients before and after laboratory service. I know we have organizations who have a VIP lounge where some patients are treated better than others. Now, there's no problem with having a VIP lounge because sometimes it is warranted to have it. Because how will you handle, a sitting MP in the same waiting area with all the rest? So it is okay to handle some patients away from the others, just for the sake of ensuring there is harmony in the roles, in the operations in the hospital. But as you do this, make sure that you do it in a manner that will not be seen like you are unfair to all the other patients. So let's have very good reasons why you are prioritizing or handling some patients differently from the others. Now, other threats you may have towards impartiality is intimidation by perpetrators, especially in these medical legal cases, where we are probably investigating a case of rape. We're investigating maybe in a forensic lab. We're investigating the possibility of one person causing, killing another one. Now, when it gets to such a situation, then don't expect that operations in the lab will be normal. It will not be, opening the door, going in and getting out just like that. You really have to think of yourself, as a person, and also the work you do. Are you safe to do it? Now, there are all manners of threats to this laboratory testing that we do. It may not happen all the time, but it may happen occasionally for some of the cases that we are handling. It can also be government interference, again, either through intimidation or through some policies that they come up with, which are probably not allowing you to do the right thing. You see, like when they detect to you that the nationally agreed testing kit for this particular condition is this kit, then you're unable to do the due process in terms of getting these other reagents on board. It can be clinicians' interference, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. Like when you get a patient, a clinician who keeps calling, the lab to ask whether results for a particular patient are ready so that they can be seen. And when you look at the patient, they're not critical in any way. But this clinician, for some particular reasons, they want you to prioritize results for this one patient over the other. So that is a serious threat to impartiality. Sometimes they'll come to the lab telling you, this patient has got these symptoms, this is where they have traveled over the last 1 week, and therefore they should be having some malaria. Now, that statement, in some way, if you are, well grounded as a technologist, you may not be affected. But think of a new personnel who have just joined the institution. They're not very grounded technically. They are likely to be swayed by the remarks of the clinicians on how they saw their patient. It can be biased outcomes in clinical trials. If you're performing a clinical study, a drug study, And when you're doing a study, you have your expectations. There is what you want to get from this experiment. Now, if you're not able to get it, you are likely to be, to influence your impartiality. It can also be biased interests by laboratory partners and sponsors. Yeah, people who are giving you the money, you have to demonstrate that you are, getting more numbers from your facility, and therefore you will have to go to unimaginable ends to make sure that you are getting more and more numbers in your facility. Now, all said and done, we can now briefly talk about some of the strategies that we can use to curb and to manage impartiality threats. And I hope my screen is still moving. Sometimes it disappoints me. Sarah, you can let me know before I
Yes,
move on.
you're good.
Very good, thank you. Now, some of the mechanisms we can use to curb these threats. Of course, I want to say again, this is not exhaustive, it is just a guide. I believe you have even more and more measures that we can experiment in our facility. But allow me just to share 10 of them, and I'll be done with the session. Now, the first one and the most crucial one is the institution, the laboratory department, and generally the hospital needs to document a policy or a manual, or you can call it a procedure, which details the requirements for impartiality. Now, without documenting a proper guidance, you may not realize some of these threats to impartiality. So it's good that we document what are we required to do as a facility, what do all the staff who join the facility need to do before they start working, are they supposed to be guided on these things, and generally what will happen to anyone who does not demonstrate the principle of confidential impartiality. Now, some of the things we are saying here is the SOP, and this SOP has got different names. Others we call it SOP for ethical conduct and professionalism. Others will just call it code of conduct. Others will call it whatever name, they give it different names. Now, you can also include commitment of impartiality in your quality policy. I know many facilities, they have displayed at the reception area, they have displayed their position or their intention when it comes to quality in the laboratory. Now, one of the statements you can include, just to show that you are taking responsibility of impartiality, is including a statement that we as laboratory XYZ, we are committed to impartiality. And that means any patient or any person who would want to attempt to interfere with the impartiality, they will at least feel ashamed, if nothing else. And that gives you an opportunity now as a lab to remind these people, remember what you have written. We are totally committed to the process and to the principles of impartiality. Now, you can have conflict of interest declaration forms. Like we said, these threats to impartiality or these conflicts may not have been there, at the time you're employed, but they may develop over time. You get married to one of your colleagues, you get your brother joining you there by merit. They can join you by merit, but they might have joined you by merit, but over time that can result into a threat of impartiality. So have this conflict of interest declaration forms where staff occasionally and even regularly declare if they have any interest in with anyone in that institution. Let the top management authorize the issue of these documents. So let them be responsible totally by, issuing the SOP for ethical conduct, taking the lead in declaring a conflict of interest, and continuously talking about it. Because whenever they talk about it, they are also educated themselves. Whatever you keep talking about, it also changes you. So if this management initially had intentions of threatening impartiality, then the moment they keep talking about this documentation, they are likely to be assisted as well. Now, the other thing which I think most of us have done is to limit access into the laboratory. We know limiting access as a safety measure, but I want to remind us that limiting access into the lab is actually also a measure to safeguard impartiality. When you tell the people who are not authorized that this place is only for authorized people only, then it means that they'll be careful not to come in into the laboratory, because their coming into the laboratory will always influence our decision making. Whether they are patients, whether they are nurses, whether they are clinicians, whoever they are, their coming into the laboratory will always interfere with with how we do our things. We can do many things, lock and key, we can use biometric controls, whatever method you want to use for limiting access. Of course, biometric would be the best, but I know not many institutions will be able to have it. But we should not just rely on the signage alone, because as Africans, whenever you tell someone no unauthorized access, that is the place they want to visit even more. So we should not just rely on that signage. Let us explore further measures to limit access into the lab. So this will keep off intentional as well as unintentional threats to impartiality, like what we are saying. People who want to intimidate you, if you keep the door open or you keep the door in a way that anyone can open, then they will be able to get into the laboratory and intimidate you from there. So this will prevent intimidations when we limit access, and it also gives room for you to be objective, and it closes out subjectivity. Now, the moment you're not able to see the patient, the moment you're just seeing their sample, it means that you'll be guided by the objective and the scientific data that you're getting from the results of this patient. Otherwise, if you keep, seeing the patient, the way they are struggling, the way they are on the wheelchair, and the way they are not able to walk on their own, it means that your subjectivity will be uplifted. You're likely to say this patient has this condition because of what you are saying about them, not necessarily what the objective data that you have in your results. Now, the other way is to completely separate testing and cash collections. Yeah, we need to say this often. We need to avoid, tempting our colleagues with visible cash, especially in these difficult economic times. If the laboratory is still the one collecting cash for its own testing, then don't expect the laboratory to be impartial. The proverb of he who pays the piper calls the tune will be very live. That if I have paid 10,000 Kenya shillings, or maybe $10, or maybe I have paid $200 for my testing, then I'm likely to influence you, quicken my results, because I'm among the ones who have paid a lot. Or give me this favorable result because you know how much I have paid. So as a lab, we don't want to know what they have paid. Of course, our laboratory manager needs to know at the end of the day for the sake of reports and all that. But the person who is doing the testing should not be interested to know how much the patient has paid, because without knowing, you might be influenced by these collections that you have received from a particular patient. So let's centralize cash collections away from the lab and allow just receipts in the laboratory instead of someone coming with the money. Create awareness to all staff. That's another measure we can use to curb impartiality threats. And we are saying this thing of impartiality is not something that you will learn one day and forever and ever. You will always be impartial. It is something that needs to be created as an awareness at the point of employment, that we are independent as a lab. We are not biased in any way. We don't discriminate on any grounds. And so discuss these impartiality requirements with the new staff during the induction, and then assess their competence and commitment to these impartiality requirements. So you assess at the beginning when they are joining, and also regularly when probably you are doing assessment of competence for other things, and also regularly conduct CMEs and CPDs to ensure that our staff are continuously made aware of these impartiality clauses and requirements. Now, ensures separation of crucial functions, ensures role separation for crucial functions, like what we were saying. If you are the phlebotomist and the tester at the same time, I collect a sample from you, and then immediately I go with it into the laboratory and start doing testing. you as the patient, if you have an interest, you will surely influence my decision because you know I'm the one who have collected and I'm the one who is going to test. So I have all the decision to make. Now, if our patients get to know that we are that powerful, that we can do collection and do testing and give the results, they will surely influence us by whatever means they can. So let us also separate the quality assurance role and lab management role. I have seen organizations trying to cut on costs, where you have the lab manager as the quality assurance at the same time. Be sure that they are going to be influenced. When now the rubber meets the road in terms of doing the quality assurance work and doing management of resources, they will definitely not be impartial. And also separate testing and finance management, separate testing and procurement of laboratory commodities. That will help us to completely curb the threat to impartiality. Allow rotation of personnel across different sections of the lab and even across different locations of the same lab. If it's a lab that has different locations within the country or even within the world, allow rotations because that will help prevent personnel from getting accustomed to some particular patients. And this getting accustomed and just like they say even in the police force, you don't allow one police officer to stay in the same place for so long. Because the moment they get accustomed to the different people they serve, then they are likely not going to be impartial. They'll develop so many friends, in the process. And we're not saying that staying in the same section is wrong. In fact, it is good because it allows you to do specialization. You're able to master a particular section, activities of a particular section. But at the same time, let us be careful not to do it for so long to the point that these personnel get so accustomed, even by the system, that they are no longer able to do the right thing in that section. Adopt blinded testing. This may not happen for all the tests, and mostly it happens in clinical trials where the person who is doing the testing is not given an opportunity of seeing the name of the patient. What they have is the number of that particular patient, and the only person who probably knows the name of the patient is a clinician. Now, in some of these tests, even in routine testing, it may be necessary to blind them for the VIPs, because if it's a VIP and I have been paid to damage their name politically, then I can easily release results that are not true because of how much I have gotten. That is why blinded testing is encouraged for some of the crucial tests that are very sensitive, or even to some of these people who are, they are the high and mighty in the society, and any result might result to them damaging their name in a way that is not right. So we can consider blind testing through our information system managements and all that. Declaration of conflict of interest without victimization. Now, this is something we need to cultivate. Of course, everybody, even if I am related to someone in that institution, I will try as much as possible to keep hiding that information. I don't want anyone to know that this so and so is my cousin or so and so is my brother. So let's allow this culture of people declaring any conflict of interest, and we don't victimize them for that disclosure. And it can be done at the initial point of employment and also regularly. Let's encourage declaration of conflict of interest without any victimization. Almost finally is limit direct calls to the laboratory from external parties. Now, I know this is strange because we want to be as close as possible to our parties, to our external parties, especially the patients. We want to communicate with them anytime we want. That's a good thing because it's allow you to have that good relationship with the clients. But that close relationship can also be a threat to impartiality. So if a patient wants to influence, a lab, if they're able to call directly and they're able to get to the actual section where where DNA testing is happening, paternity testing is happening, and probably I know, as a lady, this child is not was not sired by this man. then I'm likely to call you directly and influence the kind of results you're going to give. So to protect this or to prevent this, we can protect the lab from these interactions somehow by allowing all laboratory calls to go through us a particular center, a call center. Other organizations call it a switchboard. Others will just call it a hospital call center. So that someone who is there attending to this call can be able to do some little filtering of some of the people who want to interact with the lab. In the way that they will ask a few questions. What do you want? Is it a must that you call now? Could you probably wait until the results are done and then you call after 5 minutes? So this filtering can delay the calls so that anyone who wants to interfere with the kind of result that we are supposed to give out will be frustrated in some way. And in some of these crucial testing, we can also allow or ask our technologists to switch off their phones. You remember, like in the case of, where the government pathologist is supposed to investigate a case where police has been involved in killing a civilian. I want to believe if those guys were having their phones, those pathologists were having their phones on, they must have received so many calls, some of them intimidating them. So it's good for some of these crucial testing to allow and to accept ourselves as a technologist to switch off our phones so that we don't get these interactions and these intimidations from the from the external parties. So limiting direct calls to the laboratory can be crucial, especially for some of these crucial tests that require a lot of impartiality. Finally, recognize and comment consistent demonstrations of impartiality among staff. Like we say, staff always feel motivated. They feel encouraged to do the right thing whenever we recognize them and even commend them publicly. It can be privately, where they're given a small gift or just given a handshake or just given a thumbs up, but doing it also publicly encourages everybody else who would want to do the right thing, but they don't have, the courage to go ahead and do it. So this is meant to encourage the staff and to allow them to develop intrinsic commitment to impartiality. What we want to emphasize is that we cannot be able to regulate impartiality so much. It will depend on the individual personnel. Are they able themselves, to exercise the best work ethics and do the right thing? So when we commend and recognize these guys, then we are likely to have them develop an inbuilt, an inborn characteristic of ensuring we are able to uphold the right things of impartiality. So that is it. Probably I can summarize in a minute that what we need to do is, number one, and most importantly, let's have a documentation of what we want to do in terms of impartiality by having a policy, having a procedure, having a manual that details exactly what needs to be done and what also needs to caution, what also is cautioning anyone who violates the impartiality requirements. Then create awareness across all staff, across the management, across all the stakeholders of the lab, and let's have them adhere to the best work ethics. Regularly meet to review any emerging threats to impartiality. What I have shared are just a minimal, just a tip of the iceberg. Threats to impartiality are so many. So meet regularly and review some of these emerging threats and check whether the measures you have instituted previously are still effective. And if they are not effective, continuously institute other measures for these existing threats and even for any new threats that you come across. And also encourage the personnel to develop a culture of impartiality, because at the end of the day, it is inbuilt, this thing. If the staff is not interested in being impartial, it may be difficult, to force them to be impartial. So allow me to stop at that. Sorry, I took almost the entire time for Q&A, but I want to believe there may be a few questions here and there. Thank you so much for listening to me at this time of the day. I now hand it over to Sarah. for conclusion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much, Paul Kahara. That was insightful. You have a lot of appreciation and compliments from the team, but allow me to pick the questions, and I will request for your time because I see the questions are more, so kindly bear with us. So I'll go straight to the first question. Using appropriate example, explain how threats to impartiality can be monitored. Paul?
Do I answer one by one, or do I wait for one
Yeah.
or two questions?
You can pick two, or one is okay.
You can read the other
No,
one.
no, I
Okay.
can read the other one. Okay. Can we have a policy on impartiality? Will it answer, I think, clause 4.1a, b, and c? Is concerned that this was affixed in our assessment on the ISO 15189 version 2022 by Kenna's assessment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me try to answer them very quickly. So I think this one is from an anonymous attendee on whether how we can demonstrate practically how to monitor the threats to impartiality. So threats, ideally, these are risks. Actually, they are risks. So one of the ways that you can address threats to impartiality is through the risk management way. And many organizations have a risk management procedure where thrice or twice in a year you sit around, you anticipate or you look around and prophesy any threats to impartiality based on what activities you're having. And then from the team, because these things can come from the team, have a way of addressing any threats that you identify in those areas. So I would say address it in the normal way that we do risk assessment, by first of all identifying the threat itself, looking at some of the effects, looking at the root cause of that threat, and then going ahead and initiating a preventive action or a mitigation or an improvement action to eliminate this particular threat. So that is one way that you can use. The other one, I think it got lost. I was looking at it, then it got lost. Would you read it, please, Sarah?
Okay, let me read it. The question was on clause 4. Okay, let me read. Can we have a policy on impartiality? And will it answer clause 4.1a, b, and c? This was affixed on our assessment on the ISO 15189 version 2022 by Kenna.
Yes, partially, yes, especially part B, where the standard talks about the lab management shall be committed to impartiality. So having a quality policy that includes a statement saying we are committed to impartiality can serve the purpose for that. But you may need to go beyond just the policy by showing a procedure of how, a documented flow of activities that you need to follow to ensure that you're able to adhere to impartiality requirements.
Okay, thank you. Next is from Sarati.
Okay.
Is saying, how can we carry out impartiality risk assessment and how frequent?
Okay, I think I may have tried to answer it in the course of the first question. So first of all, you can do brainstorming where you sit around 2 or 3 people, think around the institution and what are these possibilities of threats to impartiality. And you can do this as many times as you wish. The standard is very silent on how many times you can do it, but I would suggest at least 2 times in a year.
Thank you. I think that answers Boa's question. So we move to
Okay.
Thomas. Is it really possible to achieve absolute impartiality in our lab?
Okay, very quickly, no, it may not be possible to achieve absolute impartiality. In fact, the standard already anticipates there may be some threats which we cannot be able to eliminate. We can only minimize them. Like, for example, if in your policy as an institution, you allow spouses to work together, or you allow relatives to work together, it means there is some degree of partiality. So you can't be able to have absolute impartiality.
Thank you. Frederick is appreciating your great presentation and is asking, aside from SOP and staff attestation, what practical approaches and tools can lab use to demonstrate and monitor impartiality in their routine activities? If you have answered, you can just say pass, or you can include
I think
some
that I have
comments.
answered by way of risk assessment, where you keep brainstorming what other risks, what other threats are we having, and then you come up with newer measures as you go along.
Okay. Someone is asking, you mentioned about VIP being treated differently as not impartiality. With these, as they get shorter TAT and faster reports, does it demonstrate how this is not impartial?
I knew that would come up. Of
Mm.
course, everybody wants every patient to be handled in the same way, but for very good reasons, there may be instances where you handle some patients maybe faster than others. In the case of emergencies, in the case of a patient whose presence in that hospital for so long might interfere with other activities within the institution. So the reason why they are handled probably faster so that they can go away and leave us to do the work. Not necessarily because they are being favored, because they are VIP, they came with a security guy, but because you want them to be released and we continue with our routine work at the facility.
Okay.
But you document it. Make sure that you have in your SOP all those situations formally, which can cause the facility not to follow the queue as scheduled.
Okay. Someone is asking, blood donation should be voluntary. However, patients are forced to bring donors for replacement. Does this amount to impartiality?
Not necessarily, because that's a process. I know, of course, maybe the question would have extended to say some patients are not even required to bring donors. In some cases, you tell even 10 donors to come. So the lab may, if the patient is able, they have a larger family, they may be required to give more people to donate blood. But that does not necessarily threaten impartiality.
Thank you. Someone is appreciating your good presentation and saying, kindly next time, take us through the ISO 15189 version 2022. So that is a comment for future consideration. Then the other comment is, someone is saying, most of the quality officers and the lab manager differ in their opinions due to the nature of their work. What should a QA officer do when the lab manager is using his or her position to intimidate him or her? And how should quality assurance officer promote QMS in a lab led by a manager who is emotionally not intelligent without making him or her feel offended?
That sounds like a real life situation at the moment. Yeah,
Sure.
of course, that happens a lot where you, as a quality assurance officer, you know what is right. You want to give the best to the client, but the laboratory manager on the other side is looking at how can we save, how can we cost cut on some of these activities. Now, by nature of their job, you don't expect the quality assurance officer and the laboratory manager to always agree. But try to, get to agreement, try to explain to them. And if you feel they're not able to agree with you, that's why you have the laboratory director in most cases who is probably higher in authority. You may probably get the indulgence and streamline some of those things.
Okay. Gloria is saying, how can we compare impartiality, ethical code of conduct, and conflict of interest?
The whole concept is ethics and professionalism. That is the whole concept that you're talking about. Impartiality probably is just limited on it's just one part of the ethics. Otherwise, ethics are so many because selling of laboratory samples could be unethical, but it may not necessarily be, an impartial issue. So impartiality is just a small thing or just a topic under the whole concept of work ethics. Now, code of ethics could be a number of maybe 10 or 20 activities that you have to achieve for you to be said you are adhering to the right requirements of professionalism.
Okay. There is a case scenario here. Someone is saying an aged man comes for malaria testing and a young lady who is 20 years old was brought in 1 minute earlier for RBS and HB. Am I justified to be impartial to serve the lady first or to serve the old man first, respect gesture before the lady?
Okay, so like we said, there are instances when you can not, I don't know what to say violate, but you can go against your impartiality. We follow the queue like this because this man, probably in your own procedure, you have said in this organization we shall be prioritizing people who are 70 years and above. We shall also be prioritizing people who are expectant, heavily expectant. If you have that in your own procedure, that these are some of the some of the instances when you can go against somehow your impartiality requirements, then there's no problem. In any case, even in government organizations, you'll find the people who are elderly, the people who are expectant, people who are in wheelchairs will be served faster than all the others. But that is well documented, is probably a policy. If you make it a policy in your institution, there is nothing like your partial. It's part of your SOP.
Thank you. Someone is asking, what is your comment on vendor lab equipment placement model and impartiality?
Of course, yeah, placement and those that have been bought. In many cases, these suppliers who will give you an equipment for free in quotes, so that they can probably recover their money from the reagents. Those arrangements are there. They are here in the country and even out of the country. But even as you engage this supplier on a placement contract, make sure you take them through the due process. How you arrive on them, how you narrow down to this particular supplier, let it be as a result of a due process. If you follow the due process, there is no problem. Yeah, because we are not expected to buy all the equipments. We may be supported by some organizations and probably recover progressively as we continue.
Okay. Someone is asking, wanted to know whether the current lab work ethics has any impact on reducing impartiality.
You mean the current lab ethics?
Current laboratory ethics
Okay.
and has an impact on reducing impartiality.
What do they mean by current laboratory? Probably we can
Probably they've read an updated, I don't know if there is an updated lab work ethics versus the impartiality in terms of reduction. That
Okay.
was Kalista, yes.
I may not have seen the current one, a current laboratory work ethics. I don't know, by the board or whoever. I may not be able to quickly give an answer to that one. But definitely, I want to believe the drafters of that new work ethic, if it is there, might have looked at all the emerging situations, where I am here as a laboratory technologist, I am with my phone, I can communicate with everybody. So it means that whatever is happening, if it's a case that requires a lot of, confidentiality and impartiality, it may not happen as much because we have this phone that can record videos, can show progress, so the other perpetrator on the other side can see exactly what is happening. So I don't know what that document look like, but I want to believe it should be better handling the ethical issues.
Thank you. So maybe Callistas, you can share that later so that we can check on that. Somebody is asking, I think independent review of some procedures or lab results should be introduced as one of the ways of curbing impartiality in our labs. What is your take?
Saying that like almost every procedure should have a clause on impartiality. Is that what they mean?
Yeah, probably maybe an independent person to review or assess the lab. Not necessarily I'm just trying to think loud for Thomas, but probably
Okay.
not the lab officer assessing themselves, but someone who is independent to assess it. Think.
Okay, would you read the question? I can't be able to see the questions. I'm really
It's
trying
Thomas.
to.
It's okay. Let me read it. I think independent review of some processes stroke lab results should be introduced as one of the ways of curbing impartiality in our labs. What is your take on that? That is Thomas Kiplimo.
Okay, yeah, I think I would agree with him that there is need for that independent review of some of our processes to ensure that they have taken into consideration the issues of impartiality. Yes, I agree with him.
Okay. Someone is asking, can we put impartiality as a measure in appraisal stroke KPI?
Oh yes, it can be put there. In fact, if we really want to achieve proper impartiality, it has to be an ongoing issue that we assess, that we do during the inductions, we do during the initial assessments, and even during the annual assessments. Have that as an area that we can check. But that is not necessarily a requirement of the standard. It is probably a way of ensuring that everybody has the mastery of this concept.
Okay, thank you. Someone has a comment here. He's saying non-medic owners of medical institutions are the major risk of impartiality. Is there protection from, I know he's addressing Akamulso, in case one goes against their wish? So maybe you can respond assuming the association, but is there a way there is a protection against impartiality or if a case is reported on the same?
Yeah, that is true, Daniel, that you have these investors, most of them, we call them investors, who own medical facilities. To them, what matters a lot is the profit. Issues of impartiality or doing the right thing may not necessarily matter to them. But I would want to challenge Dan and everybody who work in such an institution. You may not be able to say it loudly because you see they are the employers, but through these documentations that you are going to create, an SOP of how should a test be requested, how do we promote effective utilization of laboratory tests, you come up with more professional ways so that they don't have an opportunity to force it down on you that you must report this sample as positive for this so that you can be able to maintain you in this institution. Otherwise, I don't know how a Kamuso can do it. I don't know whether it's a Kamuso or it's a union. Probably the union. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Someone is asking, can customer survey be used to check on impartiality? Maybe a few questions on impartiality put across.
Customer surveys, the people you are asking for the survey, for the feedback, they are the sources of these impartiality tests. I may not know exactly how to put the customer survey to check on impartiality. I don't know. Because the patient, they want, let's say, for example, they want their test to be done as soon as possible. Now, for their own reasons, they think being attended to faster than others is a good thing. But to us, they are threatening impartiality. So I don't know how to put it to demonstrate or to check impartiality.
Okay. Thank you. Caleb is asking, in the event a staff is implicated in matters impartiality related to financial issues, How best can this be handled without the staff feeling victimized?
I don't know how a staff can be implicated in a in a financial issue. Let's say they received a gift from one of the patients so that they can fast track their results, and then they want to cry out for protection against victimization. But I know many institutions will tell you, if even if you are to be given a gift, it cannot be given to you directly. It has to be given to the institution, and then the institution will share with you. I know that is the policy, even as a country. If any nation wants to give, let's say, even the president, anything, what they can do is to give the particular ministry or department or probably the treasury, and then that money can be given now in the best way they can. I don't know how they will not be victimized if they have received money, or they have done a test that was not billed, and then they are crying out, I don't want to be victimized. Caleb, I may not have an idea how they can be protected.
It's okay. Maybe a final question because of time. Kelvin is asking, what happens when in a setting where the political class have an influence in terms of promoting impartiality?
Oh my God, yeah, that happens a lot, especially in government organizations, where anyone who is working there must be known to the area member of county assembly. It can be a challenge, but let's do what we can in our situation in the lab. Let's start to promote it from where we can, and then we proceed that way to the medical superintendent. We'll probably be able to champion the issues of impartiality. Otherwise, I don't want to say that I have a straightforward answer on what do we do with a member of parliament who wants to bring their own people in the institution against the recruitment policies, or they want to, as a particular supplier, to provide reagents and supplies to the lab without the due process. So start from where we are. Let's ensure that we have a proper procedure, let's say, for how to recruit a new supplier. What criteria should they have met? How do we want to have a staff? What are the criteria for a new staff who should be in whatever position? Then let's do what we can within our means, and then try to promote it pole pole now towards the head of the institution.
Okay. Thank you. Allow me read some few comments or compliments. Susan is saying, awesome presentation, Paul. Thank you for your invaluable support to Akamuso and profession. Kudos. And then Cheriot is saying, wonderful presentation. That will definitely change our practice in line with the impartiality. Continue educating us. Someone else is saying, thank you for your informative presentation. I know we had skipped some, but we had someone who said, thank you for bringing in the non-science technical bit of the lab, and they are very much appreciative. That was Collins. Collins, this is good. We need to encourage more of this presentation. Sio kila mara ni science, so thank you so much. So at this point, we appreciate your time and your invaluable training or mentorship that you are doing. I know we need more time and more session to learn about ISO, but allow me give you an opportunity to give us your closing remarks before I allow one of us to give us the closing remarks. So over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I really want to take another opportunity to say how happy I am because of this chance to share the knowledge I have with my colleagues. Akamuso is doing a very good job, to facilitate exchange of information. Some of us probably would never have been known by anyone, were it not for platforms such as this. Thank you, all the participants who sent their messages of appreciation. I can see all of them. I may not be able to answer all of them, but I have seen all of those, and I'm happy that you are listening and you are in big numbers. To all the colleagues, as we embark on our activities tomorrow and going forward, let us continue going with this message of impartiality, even when it is difficult to uphold it. let us do the bit we can to ensure that our patients are able to get the right results without any influences at all. Otherwise, I want to wish you a good night and all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you so much, Paul. At this point, I welcome Colin Oga to give the closing remarks. Oga, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, Collins, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, all colleagues. I think Mr. Paul Kahara, we are really grateful for the insightful session that you've given us today. And Akamuso Association will, that is our commitment to continue educate our members. Just a point of information to the members. We are currently updating our database. So there's a call for members to update their details on the new website. So just click on the URL that we've shared with you in the chat box. In case of any challenges, you can reach out to us. We have the email akamuso.akamuso. You can also call our office number, which is available from 8 to 5. In case you have my personal number, you can reach out to me. I'll be ready to assist. I think just in a summary, the session was quite educative and informative, and I'll just give a quote that quality isn't just a department. It's a mindset that should permeate every aspect of an organization. I think with the practical approaches that we've learned on how to handle impartiality in our labs, we are headed to make great changes in the profession of medical lab science. Thank you. Just a reminder, Akamuso will be having our 30th conference. So there's a call for abstracts and conference registration for the participants. The poster is on in circulating in our social media. In case you need an invitation letter, reach out to us, akamuso.akamuso. You can call one of the officials. I think some of us, we are colleagues and we'll be ready to assist. So just on the abstracts, the deadline for the abstract submission is 15th of August. So you ensure you keep on the timeline. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Oga. Thank you, members, for listening and staying in. We have planned more. Stay connected. I know on Thursday we still have an ISO presentation from one of us from ASLM, so plan to attend. So my name is Sarah Jebitok. I've been your moderator, CPD coordinator, Akamuso. It was nice having you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye and good night. Bye-bye.